So it's episode 4 of Match Under the Microscope. It's Hendon versus Brentford B. It's the London Senior Cup final, Monday, the 14th of September at Hamwell Town FC. Lee, your first cup final as Hendon manager.
Yeah, it was a fantastic occasion. Great crowd as well. Obviously, it was a delayed cup because of obviously what had happened with the lockdown. But what a game and what an experience, as I say, and a fantastic crowd to watch that game as well.
So before we got to that stage, it was strange, wasn't it? Because our third pre-season friendly on the 15th of August was the quarter-final of the London Senior Cup. So we played kind of 3 matches, all London Senior Cup matches, as part of pre-season. So the first one was a 2-0 away win at Balham. That was a good result.
Yeah, it was. It was a game that, I go on about this, Stephen, and our whole pre-season was wrong because, you don't normally have a cup game where you can only use 5 subs. You don't have a cup game 2 weeks later in pre-season go to extra time. And you don't have one at the end of pre-season and go to another extra time. So the pre-season was a bit of a nightmare for minutes. But it was a game that we approached, and I thought we were excellent on the day. We didn't play that well in the first half, but second half we controlled the game. We passed really well, and we took our chances. We did create chances, and when we took them, we were ruthless in that, and it was a good win in the end.
And both the goals came from the 2 signings from Walthamstow. Sam Jebrai, who's still with us, and Dwayne James. I think that was his debut goal for us, perhaps.
Yeah, it was. Fantastic goal. Sammy, obviously, he's a good player, Sammy. We just haven't seen him in the season because of a niggling injury. I mean, he started in the final as well. Someone with loads of pace, loads of ability. We need to get him really fit now and be able to see the best of him. And this lockdown's been important that he goes away and does that because, as I say, we haven't seen him. But he come on in that game and give us some width and give us some pace and some ability to take people on, and his goal was fantastic, and it was followed up by another great finish from Dwayne that day.
So we're through to the semi-final, and it's a local derby against neighbours Wingate and Finchley. Barely any crowd were allowed in at that point, and we fell behind in that game. But Eddie Ashodi pulled us level in the second half. Yet again, it's the centre half or a defender scoring a goal for us. He doesn't get that many, but that was a big one for us.
Yeah, no, listen, tough game. I mean, they battered us last season with one of my games in charge, and before we made some changes. And they're raw, they're quick, they've got a good ability on the ball, Wingate. And if you leave spaces and gaps, that they punish you. And we spoke about that at length, and we did leave a gap, and they scored. And then I felt second half we really took over and controlled the game, and we've got centre halves that attack the ball really well in opposition boxes. And when you do that, you're going to score goals. And Eddie's done that for us and brought us level.
So no more goals in the 90s. So as you mentioned, it was an extra time, which I'm sure you didn't want. So you kind of alluded to it already. When you're doing pre-season, I guess the last thing you really want is an extra half an hour at the end of a game.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't the best of evenings either. It was a cold, wet, windy night. And it just wasn't ideal for us. We didn't need it, but we did do it. And I have to say, on the night, I thought our fitness levels were tremendous. We got stronger. And the most pleasing thing of that night was the way we weathered the first half of extra time. The wind was going down the hill. It was a strong wind. We didn't defend it well enough first half, but the first half of extra time, I thought we completely controlled that end. We marshalled it really well. We got balls in behind them, and then Brooksy does what Brooksy does and sticks one in the top corner.
It was a spectacular goal, wasn't it? In many ways, it was almost as good as his goal of the season effort. Talk us through it, his control, his finish. It was absolutely perfect.
That's Liam Brooks for you. I don't care what anyone says. He's as good as anything in the league when Brooksy's on it and when Brooksy's fit. And, I think we've missed him massively. I think you see when we played Walton Casuals, his performance was as good as anything this season. And it rolled into him, and he takes his touch inside. And the best thing about it is his left foot he struck it with, and he struck it clean. And he's finished in the top corner, and it was a great goal from him. And, he wasn't in the game up until then. We got him up front, and he was like a different player.
So we're 2-1 up, and shortly before the end, we make it 3 when Sam adds the third. Second rebound, I think our first touch keeper saved it, and he scored from the rebound. He's done well by that point, Sam.
Yeah, I think he was one of our top goal scorers in pre-season as well, Sammy. He just has a habit of getting in the box. And again, the injury that's with him, it's been hard for us because he gives us pace. He gives us an ability to make things happen. And, we have missed him at times. So the one thing he does, he gets in the box, and he done it on the night. He had his shot, he followed up his rebound and stuck it in himself. And that's what Sammy does. And it just then relieved the pro. And it was a good win under difficult circumstances.
So that takes us to the final then, middle of September. We're playing Brentford B on an absolutely perfect pitch, that's for sure. But you come into the game with huge injury problems. Joe White's out, Liam Brooks, Grant, Matt Ball, all missing. That must have been a big worry for you. We only had 3 substitutes.
Yeah, it did, and it was a worry. But sometimes you dealt that hand, and sometimes when the chips are down, you dig in that little bit deeper. And that's what we've done on the evening. And so I go back to it now. You play under 23 sides, and I'm always a believer that men will beat them sides. And I've been in teams before that have won. Technically, they're good sides, but physically they lack at times. I have to say Brentford B was good as anything I've seen. I wasn't prepared. We were prepared unbelievably well. I wasn't prepared for how good they actually were going to be on the night. And they were fantastic. And I think we got in there half 3 times in 120 minutes. But listen, we were fantastic. The game plan was spot on. We'd watched them. There was a reason why we brought Tom Hart to the club, was to give Eddie some help, to give us some more knowledge off the pitch and watching teams and making sure we're right before games and after games and preparing properly. And we prepared so well for Brentford, and the game plan was spot on, and it worked. I knew at some point we would get an opportunity.
How important was that game for you as part of the bigger picture, which was the league season starting soon after? Was it a cup final, we need to do everything we can to win, or was it's still part of pre-season? If we win, great. If we lose, doesn't really matter.
Again, you come down to, whenever you're in a cup final, you want to win. For me, it's a fantastic competition. When you play Brentford B, it becomes that little bit more difficult. You're not playing someone of your level, maybe a league above. You're playing someone levels above. And that was the tough bit about it. The only gloss on it for me, you're normally playing them cup finals at the end of the season when your season's done. You've got your last little bit to look forward to, and then you go on your 2-week break. I didn't even celebrate. Probably my only regret is I literally got in the car straight from the game and went home prepared for the Saturday, because you're going into the first game of the season, and maybe I should have enjoyed that a little bit more, because for me that was some achievement. That's probably the best game that I've been involved in. As a one-off win was fantastic.
So defensively, we were outstanding. All of them, and Jonathan North made a couple of saves. And you said, as you rightly said, we didn't get in the box very often, but with 8 minutes of extra time remaining, Dwayne makes his most significant impact as a Hendon player, where he makes himself a bit of room, then he gets tripped and he's brought down. Were you convinced it was a penalty?
Absolutely, and I'm a firm believer in, no matter what level you're playing, if you can stay in games, you will always get an opportunity. And the one thing we done that night, we defended fantastically well. We were brave in and out of possession. Northie was exceptional. The back 4 were exceptional, but it doesn't just lead from the back 4. Let's go on to Dwayne's performance on the night. Didn't stop running all night. The midfield didn't stop running all night. The wide boys didn't stop. So it was an all-round team effort, the boys coming off the bench. But I always feel that if you stay in games, you will get one chance. And I kept saying to the boys, I remember half-time of the extra time, the boys were out on their feet and we were laughing in the end. Like we were literally laughing and saying, like, come on, fellas, like, last one now, we'll get a goal in a minute. And listen, lo and behold, we got that opportunity and we took it, and it was a blatant penalty. We worked the ball really well to get in that opportunity, and we took it, and Shawnee stuck it away. And again, you go into that game and you're not sure how it's going to go. And I keep going on about how good Brentford B were. Until you're actually there, you don't realise it. So looking back now, that for me was just an unbelievable win performance, and sort of the best outcome that it could have been in the end for us. And until you look back at it, you don't actually realise that that was some achievement that night.
If Dwayne hadn't, Dwayne was brought down. Dwayne was injured. Dwayne went off, I think, and therefore that meant he couldn't take the penalty. Who was your first choice penalty taker for that match?
Do you know what? I'm one of them. I haven't ever really got a first choice penalty taker. I'm one. If you fancy it, go and take it. Listen, I've watched Sean Lucian take a number of penalties before and stick them away and miss a couple. I watched Dwayne in training is very, very good at them. Past them two, there isn't many that I could actually say. To be fair, we've worked a lot on penalties actually over the last few weeks because we've had the trophy and the FA Cup. And the only other one that I would say is probably the best penalty taker in the club could be Jaden Clark. He strikes a fantastic penalty. Eddie thinks he can take a penalty, and Kieran Forbes think they can take a penalty. But when it comes down to it, listen, full belief in Sean on the night. And sometimes I just feel that it's meant to be your night, and that was that night.
Cyrus was filming on the touchline the last couple of minutes of the game, and the drama. So we're kind of clinging on, and you want the referee to blow the full-time whistle so that we can all enjoy and celebrate. And then he's given them a free kick, and you've gone absolutely posse.
Yeah, because it wasn't a free kick. But listen, I'm certainly not as bad as my dad with referees, but it's a very hard job for them. But I just feel sometimes that the bigger clubs get that little bit of luck at times and that little bit of favouritism. And we'd worked so hard that it wasn't a free kick. It was probably the first time we'd actually kept a little bit of possession down in their half and controlled the last 2 minutes of the game. And I just felt it was one of them, let's let them stick it in the box one more time and see what comes of it. And I didn't feel we deserved that. And, so yeah, I wasn't happy about that decision at the time.
And of course, their keeper comes up and almost scores.
Some header, wasn't it? It was, that's heart in your mouth moments. And again, listen, it comes back. Listen, we played Brentford B a few weeks ago and they taught us a football lesson. I knew what was coming. Listen, my team selection wasn't great on the night, but we had to get minutes into people. It wasn't about the result for me that night, but I knew what was coming because they didn't like it. And they had every right because they battered us in both games. But again, sometimes you lucked in and the keeper's rose like a salmon. It's a fantastic header and it's probably harder to miss than it was score, but it somehow found itself wide and that was it. What an achievement.
So the full-time whistle goes and it's not quite, the celebrations weren't quite the same, is it? Because the players couldn't go up and kind of shake hands with the official and get their medals. And it wasn't the same because of the COVID, but the celebrations in the dressing room afterwards were, as they would be on any game, they were tremendous.
Yeah, they were, and it's what it's all about. Again, I go back on it, and it's my own fault, and I should be better at it and enjoying the moment because it was a fantastic moment. It's a fantastic achievement for the football club. From where we were last year to where we were that day was massive improvement, and that was what it was all about. It's a great achievement winning that competition, and it was weird. It was a weird, like you say, you couldn't shake your hands. But the one thing we got to do was play in front of a crowd for it. And the Balham game, the Wingate game, we couldn't really do that. But on that night we did, and there was 500-600 people. It was a very busy evening, and we managed to do that. And that was the nice thing. And like you say, the change rooms after were brilliant. For me, I look back now and probably that game that night was probably been a detriment to our start a little bit because we didn't quite, I don't think we've really quite reached them levels. And maybe that's because of tiredness, injuries, and we had a very, very hard pre-season. Actually, when you talk about it and look back now, that was very, very tough. And yet we still go and find a way of grinding out a 2-2 draw at Salisbury on the Saturday.
All right. Well, that was the 6th time we've won the London Senior Cup, the 4th time in the last 11 years. It may not have been the most exciting game I've ever seen, but certainly for drama.
I didn't enjoy it one bit.
Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, the most important thing is that we won and everybody got a great buzz from it. So winning that game, how did that translate to the Saturday then going into Salisbury? But Salisbury away is a really tough start to the season. Were the guys kind of buzzing going into that?
It's very hard and you have to become a bit of a self-motivator then because you have the high of the Monday. We're then in on the Thursday and when I say you normally, you go in on a Thursday, the last game before the training session before pre-season, and you're buzzing, you're excited, the boys are ready to go, you work on your set pieces, you get everything right, you talk about Salisbury. And we wasn't really able to do that. We had 5 or 6 in the treatment room. We're patching people up. We had a few out on the training pitch. We couldn't work on certain bits of our game that we wanted to work on. And then you're trying to motivate the boys to go again. And I think you see on the Saturday, we really struggled for long periods of that game. But we found a way. And as I said to you on Saturday, just gone about our Dorchester performance, we do that. We dig deep. We've got a group of players that dig very, very deep. When the chips are down, they'll come good. And that's what we've got at a football club. And that's important to have that, because that was a really hard pre-season. I was tired myself. I remember saying to you, it was I was shattered myself, and that was after the Monday. And by the Saturday, I was still tired. So the boys were in a bad place, but they managed to find a way. But it was very hard for them, and they were superb. And we have to remember, they didn't get paid for any of that. That whole pre-season that they went through, that body aches that they had, that hard time of them extra times, and they didn't get paid 1 penny for that. And that just shows to me that how much that meant to them on that Monday night to perform like that against a full-time outfit that have spent a lot of money, but they've done it the right way, Brentford be. And I have to give them credit. Their manager's superb and their team are outstanding. I watched them again last week against Watford, and they're a joy to watch. And but to perform like that and find a way to win was just some achievement.
Perfect. That's a nice way to end.
Thank you.
Thank you.